Hey everybody out there in the world of YouTube and the YGPC and many other platforms. I just like to say it's about almost, I'd say, 4 in the morning. It's Christmas Eve, December 24th, and I'd just like to say that I've not been posting a whole lot, except for maybe little shorts here and there. I'm not really posting anything heartfelt or anything. Having my morning coffee. Work a 7 to 12:30 shift. Fun times. Been 15 years in retail, and each year I've worked in retail, the more and more I feel that it's kind of sucked my soul dry to a certain degree. I mean, I guess I'm a glutton for punishment, but when I say suck my soul dry, I mean, with the whole, like, people, as people say, the Christmas spirit and all that, because it's like in 15 years' time, as which November 26th of this year made exactly 15 years that I've been in retail. And it seems like each year I see greed, I see more consumerism than what's necessary. I mean, don't get me wrong, I myself am a consumer. Y'all out there in the world are consumers. But boy, this time of year, I just almost cringe after being 15 years in retail. Now, granted, I also say that in the same idea and sense that, it takes people buying stuff in retail stores in order to make a paycheck, and I understand that. But, like, when they went from just having one crazy day of crazy, crazy sales to an entire month of stupidity sales just to make a buck, I don't know which one is more stupider. Than with the way the internet is, I wish all the like the Black Friday sales, I wish it all would go digital. I think it'd be safer and much better. I really, really do. I mean, granted, there is an older generation that has not a clue on how to use the internet. And if the truth was to be told, I am partially one of those people. Not in that generation, but I'm just a slightly computer illiterate. But, I wish it all would just go digital completely. Give the retail worker a break. But I know there's also people that wear a fancy name tag that says management on it, and that's what they live for. And nothing wrong with that. I mean, if you're in a career that you love so much to take on that type of role, it's understandable. Can't blame a person. Now, I ain't meaning to complain, by no means, because I'll tell you something I do love every year. And since I've become a dad, I seem to notice this more and more. You see these kids that come in and different organizations that buy things for children, like you got your Toys for Tots, your Clothing Child. Matter of fact, when I was a little kid, if it hadn't been for Clothing Child, I probably wouldn't have had much clothes when I was a kid. And then they got this thing called Shop with a Cop. And, just the looks on some of these kids' faces, it's that there melts my heart. That there makes it worth going into work every day whenever you see that type of thrill and enjoyment coming into any retail store and everything, because some of those kids, they ain't got a whole lot, and parents always struggling, and seems like the system is designed to make people struggle this time of year. But at the same time, it's like social media and everything else out there in the world, and is also making you think, well, you gotta buy, 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 buy. I remember being a kid, and there was this preacher. He'd come around to everybody in the congregation, and he'd give the kids a sack full of peanuts, an orange, an apple, a few pieces of chocolate, some mint, and one little dollar-sized toy. And I just thought that was absolutely wonderful. You give that to a child nowadays, they're going to look at you like you're stupid. And I blame technology and the early introduction of technology. I'm trying to teach my kids to enjoy the simple things of life so that they're not disappointed. And that's my goal right there. Other than I'm hoping they all get into martial arts. But on a good note, though, with all the other things, out there in the world, I'm hoping eventually to fight my first kickboxing match. I was supposed to have my first match about three and a half months ago back, and well, the guy didn't show, and I showed up for the weigh-in, as which I learned that I didn't have to, but I wanted to anyways to get the full experience. And then I showed up the next day, and the promoter told me, even though my opponent didn't show up, he had me go through all the process that I was supposed to go through, even if I was fighting, because he said, you never know, something might pop out of the woodwork, He said, I want to make sure you're examined and everything and ready to go if that should happen. And I was like, okay. So, that was interesting. That was knowledge well received. And I had fun, even if I didn't get to fight, but I got to learn about being a corner man. I also learned how underprepared I was as a corner man. But anyways, that was a fun learning experience, and got 3 little ones now. Got a boy. It's interesting having a boy versus 2 girls, but I tell you what, those 2 girls just love that little man. I say little man. A lot of people say, oh, that's my boy. I think we need to, as men, should start referring to our sons as little men. Because as fathers don't raise boys. We raise men. Moms raise boys. And that's not sexist. It's a fact and logical terminology. Look it up. Because a mother raises a son so much, but then he starts turning to his father to ask the questions of life, in the sense of, why do we do this? Why are we doing that? How come you do this, and do that? And funny thing is I'm trying to be something I really never had in life. And that's a giant learning curve. And I learn from examples, and there's a few people I respect that I look up to. Matter of fact, I'll give a big shout out. Of course, I'm always once in a while giving this man a shout out, but Mr. George Bruno, if you don't know who he is, go check him out, and you'll get yourself an education. He's one of the people on YouTube I look up to, and I listen to the advice he gives if you're going to be a father, and some of his ideas about being a parent. Of course, he gives other things, he's more geared towards men, and I like what he has to say. And then there's a few other people that I've grown up around and gained an example of. And I think I'm doing all right. I really do. I don't know how I'm going to feel about public schools. Well, I already know how I feel about public schools. I'm dreading it. Not because, oh, it's my child's first day of school kind of thing. No. I'm dreading it because I don't know what type of indoctrination that's going to be possibly instilled in my child in a public school setting. There's a lot of things going on in the public schools that should never be and should have never been, but is today. And it scares me. So as far as I'm concerned, my children are going to get a double education. They're going to know that, yes, you need to learn to read, write, and do arithmetic, and learn history, especially history. But I'm also going to make sure they know that you have what they teach in school, then you have what's really going on in the real world, as which is where the real education's at least from my point of view. If they want to pursue college after high school, kudos to them. That means they're doing something their daddy never done. Nor does their daddy have the patience, and I don't. I barely made it to high school, and that's no joke. Matter of fact, I'm sure if it wasn't for Bush's No Child Left Behind, I probably wouldn't have got a diploma. And that's no joke neither. I guess it's the only time something political actually paid off for me. I think one of the main things that kept me in school was a promise my mother made me make. My mother never made it to school, never got a diploma. She tried several times to get a GED and never could complete the course. And so I guess I can say I've done something my mother never done. But at the same time, I feel like life itself has been my education. Getting out there in the world has been more of a realistic education to me than sitting in any classroom ever has. Learning something with my hands has meant more to me and been more valuable to me than pushing a pencil on a paper or punching a key on a keyboard. Granted, if anybody ever has the patience to learn computer programming and all that stuff, I think that's where the money's at right there. And I think right now in the area where I'm at, diesel mechanics and welding. Get into a trade school. That's where your money's at too. Or at least where your money would be well invested. Now, I'll tell you something else too. I've been real blessed with a beautiful wife. You know, if you'd told me 5, 6 years ago, or even 10 years ago, that I'd been a married man and have 3 kids and be happy, I would have looked at you like you were nuts. I would have thought you were a dope. And I probably would have been very cautious and leery of you. Because I wouldn't have thought it would have been true. Especially with all the trouble I'd been through. But God works in mysterious ways. Sometimes you gotta get thrown through the mud and dragged across it and hit a deep valley before you hit that mountain peak. But I've also learned marriage is always a work. You're always working on your marriage. Always. No matter what. When the person, whoever coined the phrase, marriage is an ongoing work, they really hit the nail on the head, I think. Some days are easier than others. Some days aren't. But I'm happy. We're happy. The whole family's happy. But everybody has her days, everybody has her moments. Well, folks, I think with that, I'm going to say I wish each and every single one of you a very Merry Christmas. May God bless. And if you're feeling lonely and you're feeling depressed this time of year, just remember God's watching out for you. And if maybe you're one that lacks faith or lacks a belief, well, maybe this might be the turning point that maybe you should explore it. Well, anyways, wherever you're at in this world, may God bless, thank you, and have a very Merry Christmas.